sense of measure, no illusions as we take refuge in young man's pleasure, breaking down the dreams we make real.
Yes is coming to the lake. Join us Tuesday, July 30 at Ozarks Amphitheater for Yes, Epics and Classics, featuring John Anderson and Emerson Lake and Palmer. Welcome by Lake Ozark Real Estate, Jonathan Hartenstein, Broker Associate. Tickets at ozarksamp.com.
One down, one to go. Half a mile from the county fair, and the rain came pouring down. Me and Billy standing there with a silver half a crown. Hands are full of a fishing rod and the tackle on our backs. We just stood there getting wet with our backs against the fence. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Oh, the water. Hope it don't rain all day. And it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like Jelly Roll. And it stung me. Yet it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like going home. And it stung me. And the rain let up and the sun came up. We were getting dry. Almost let a pickup truck nearly pass us by. So he jumped right in the driver grinned, and he dropped us up the road. Yeah, we looked at the swim, and we jumped right in, not to mention fishing poles. Oh, the water. Let it run all over me. Yeah, that stung me to my soul. Stung me just like Jelly Roll. Yeah, that stung me. Yeah, that stung me to my soul. Stung me just like going home. Yeah, that stung. But our throats were getting dry. That we saw the man from across the road with the sunshine in his eye. Really lived all alone in his own little home with a great big gallon jar. There were bottles too, one for me and you. And he said, hey, there you are. Oh, the water. Jetted myself from the mountain stream. Yeah, it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like Jelly Roll. And it stung me. Yeah, it stung me to my soul. Stung me just like going home. Yeah, it stung. Stung me to my soul.
Good morning. Welcome to Nadine at 9 on this beautiful Friday morning, coming to you live from Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Arts Studio in the beautiful Lake of the Ozarks. It truly is a beautiful morning here. The sun is shining. There's a nice chill in the air. These are my favorite kind of mornings, especially when you get up early and the sun has that beautiful orange glow. It's just my favorite. So, thank you for joining me again, for bearing with me as I continue this journey. There has been a lot going on, so I'm going to get right into the show today because I'm really excited about this show. I have some great guests that are going to be here today. We are going to try and really dissect what the roles of these elected officials are that we're going to be voting on for the state and local level on August 6th, which is just a couple weeks away. So I want you to feel prepared and ready, excuse me, and just excited to exercise the freedom that you have in this country to have a voice, and hopefully we can help you with that today as we dig into what these roles are, because I know that I had no idea what a lot of them did, and honestly, I'm learning right along with you. So thanks for being with us. I wanted to start off by talking a little bit more about what I had discussed really briefly last week regarding the state convention that happened in May, which, as I was thinking about talking about this today, I was like, there has been so much happened since then. I almost feel like this is not even relevant news anymore. But the reason why it is so extremely relevant is because it is an amazing example of what happens when good people fight and they do not give up and they keep pushing forward for the truth. And so I do want to make sure and highlight what happened at the state convention and explain a little bit better about why there was an issue with the delegates in Missouri. And then also the really wonderful news that I got after I went off the air last week was that the Credential Committee at the Republican National Convention that just ended in Milwaukee, that Credential Committee decided to reinstate the original grassroots slate in Missouri that was voted on at the state convention. So that was an amazing praise. We are so grateful for that. It would not have happened without God's grace over us, but also without the persistence of so many dedicated patriots fighting for the truth. And so I want to say thank you to all of those men and women. I think you know who you are. There are so many, I can't name you all, but I'm so grateful for all of you, for the example that you have set for the rest of us. And I just hope that we can continue in those same footsteps and not give up and not surrender when there is a lot at stake for ourselves and the future generations. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to be a part of it. It's truly been a blessing. So thank you for that example, and I will try and help carry the torch. So really quick, what happened was at the state convention, which in another show, I'm going to dig in a little bit more to the whole caucus setup and how all of that played into the state convention. That was kind of the final step of the caucus agenda, I guess you could say, here in Missouri, and then that eventually led to the Republican National Convention and who went there. So anyway, I'll dig into that in a later episode, but I just wanted to make sure it was really clear what had happened at the state convention here in May. So we, meaning the delegates that were elected by each district. So in each county, there was a caucus where they selected delegates to go to a district convention. And then at that district convention, there were some decisions made. And then after the district convention, there was the state convention. And at that state convention, there was close to 900 of us, or over 900 of us, I believe. Go ahead.
There should have been about 950 of us. There were slots for that, but there were only over 850 that were actually in attendance that day.
Okay. Yes. There were quite a few, but not as many as there could have been. Anyway, so all of us that were there, the truly grassroots people, and I told you that on this show I want to dig into what all this political language means. So I'm going to explain what grassroots is from my perspective. I kind of like to think of it as a word picture. So you think of grass, which is on the ground, obviously, and then you think of roots, which help things grow. So they're also mostly in the ground. They're helping things grow. If you have strong roots, you have a strong foundation. And so that's literally, to me, what grassroots are, is the people in the community, in the cities, in the states that are doing the groundwork. They are the ones setting a strong foundation for their communities, and they do that by helping educate who is running for office, what's going to be on a ballot, when the elections are, because for some reason people seem to not know when elections are. So the grassroots are helping do things like that. And the other very, very important thing that grassroots do generally is they vet. And so they take these candidates that are running for different offices and they ask them certain questions that will then help them understand where this person stands morally and legally and politically and all of these other areas. So that kind of in a small nutshell is what grassroots are. It's literally the word picture of the base layer, the foundation, everyday men and women who are trying to go about their lives but truly care about their communities and their country, and they are doing everything that they can to help their communities grow and flourish by having a strong foundation. So at the convention, the grassroots elected a slate, meaning a number of people. There were 27 delegates and then 27 alternates. And the alternates were very important because if a delegate got sick or if they had to leave or something like that, an alternate would take their place. So both sides, the 27 delegates, 27 alternates, very important. So we elected, this is called the Truly Grassroots for Trump slate at the convention. It was duly elected. There was no issue with it. And then the GOP, which stands for Grand Old Party, which is the Republican Party, and what we say the establishment are the people. Actually, I'm going to let Miss A explain what the establishment is a little bit better because I think that she would give you a better explanation. Go ahead.
So you're going to let me be the negative one then? The establishment are typically people that have been involved in the party and maybe held an elected office for a long time. So they know what the traditions are, they know what the systems are, they know how to play the systems, they know how to do things without alerting the public. So they keep their own little, whether it's the money system going or the power structure going or whatever, they would just assume that the grassroots not get involved.
Correct.
So if you go to the Capitol, sometimes the word grassroots is a bad word because they just assume the elected officials, the staff, and the lobbyists just decide how things happen, what happens, and that we just stay home, that we stay in our own little world and stay out of theirs. And as long as we're not causing problems, they don't have a problem with us.
Right.
But when we get involved and we see whether they're just taking advantage of the system or there's total corruption in the system, then we're stepping into their realm and they're threatened. And I know that that's what happened both at our congressional districts. Some of it happened at our county caucuses, but it absolutely happened at the state convention. And then it continued on to the RNC.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to our electors there, our slate of electors.
Yes. We can talk about that right now. That's something I was going to talk about anyway. Something that that had come out with the platform, specifically with the Republican Party platform that has been founded around godly principles for ever, basically.
I would say as long as the
yes.
Republican Party's been around.
Yes. Since the
and there was talk about that it was founded right there in Wisconsin in the 1800s.
Yes. Yes. And so it's been founded this way, and it's always been, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a platform committee that meets together and they see what has been put before them as ideas for a platform. If there are changes that need to be made, obviously the world changes every 4 years. This is when they meet together to decide a new platform, to make changes, to make amendments. And so this platform committee meets together to discuss what amendments they need to make, what changes they need to make, corrections, updates, whatever. However, with this, at the Republican National Convention, the platform committee was told that they were not allowed to make any changes. There were no amendments allowed, and that this is what I'm understanding from what I've been reading. This was the platform that Trump's team was in favor of, and this is the platform that needed to move forward, and that was it. And so there were no changes allowed to the platform. Is that correct? Was that your understanding?
That's my understanding. But don't forget the time between the congressional districts talking about the platform and the time that our delegates were elected and then disallowed to go to the convention and then reinstated. The establishment of Missouri had their people on the platform committee
Yes.
for the RNC.
Yes.
So there's been a huge power struggle
Yes.
the whole time. There's also been some concerns. I'm majorly concerned about the president's campaign team and who they're communicating it with within the state.
Yes.
So if they're coming down and talking to the head of our party in our state and the establishment, they're getting not the correct information on what our state really believes and the
Yes.
direction that our state is moving. So I believe that was, and I think we'll learn more as the days
Yes.
go by about what happened in the time between May the 4th, I believe it was, when we went to the state convention.
I think so.
And the convention and the RNC that happened just this past week,
Right.
this week.
Yes.
To see what that power struggle was and who was actually steering the ship
Yes.
during all of that time.
Yes.
So I don't believe that came like literally from Trump's mouth.
Right.
Because those are the types of details that he's got to have teams in place to help him. There's so much to keep track of. There's so much to organize. There's no way he's going to know
Right.
every person in all 50 states and
Right.
the machines that are in place.
Right.
And so to actually just point fingers at Trump, I'm trying not to do that quickly.
Right.
I'm trying to wait for the truth to come out.
Right.
Am I concerned about the platform? Absolutely, because it's what tells our federal officials now
Yes.
what they should be working towards to file and pass legislation that says, here's what the Republicans from across the country came together and said,
Yes.
here's where we want our country to steer towards. And I think it's been a bit watered down from what we've had.
Yes. I agree.
I don't think that they've thrown everything out of it that's good.
Right.
But I do think that they narrowed it some, that they slimmed it down some. And I do have some concerns that there are some things that are not quite as specific as we would like
Yes.
for the grassroots to have had input on.
Yes, I agree. Gosh, as we're talking, I just feel like there's so many things wrapped up in everything that we talk about that I want to go on 100 different rabbit trails right now, because I just want to tell you, maybe you all understand political things better than I do, but when I break these things down, it's because that's what I needed and I still need. I don't think that probably everyone's not as dense as I am in this area, but I really need it broken down so far. I mean, even just to the point of what is the platform and why does the platform matter? You know, what are we even talking about here? Are there platforms for each state? I mean, just there's so many different rabbit trails. So I'm going to try and focus as much as I can each week on different topics. And just know that I'm not talking down to you. I'm literally trying to I'm talking to you the way that I needed to learn it, and hopefully you can take something from that as well, and you can leave this time with us a little bit more educated. But I'm going to go back to the state convention because I want to make it clear as to why the original slate was thrown out. So according to the complaints that were filed by two different individuals, one of whom was on that platform committee at the Republican National Convention, Derek Good, that we were just talking about, the Republican National Convention. He was on that. He filed a complaint. I'm sorry, he was not on the platform committee. It was his daughter.
So. Okay. It's hard to keep track of all the players.
It is. I apologize.
And when Nadine says that she's not talking down to you, don't feel like that either one of us are talking down. We spend literally hours per day trying to study and keep track of all the details of what's happening.
Yes.
Because there's been so much happen so quickly that even the two of us are like, is that right?
Is that happening?
Did that happen? What day did that
happen?
happen?
Did I just dream it?
Who's related to who? Who are they? So just understand that if you're just new to this, it is super overwhelming.
It is.
It is so overwhelming. The terminology, the definitions, there are some people that can talk about this backwards and forwards, but they've been involved for years typically.
Right.
Or they have a photographic memory, which I don't have. I'm so jealous of that.
Yes, I believe one of my sisters does, and it's always been really wonderful. Anyway, great for her. So at the state convention, after the convention happened and everything was accepted, we voted on things. It all moved forward as it was supposed to. Well, then these two complaints were filed by people that the grassroots would consider our establishment. There were complaints filed that we had not done things according to the rules. Now, if that was actually how they felt, then at the convention, they should have stood up and objected when we all voted to say, do we accept these rules or not? They should have stood up then. They did not. It was after the convention, after the establishment realized that their slate of hand-picked individuals by the chair of the GOP, Nick Myers, that those individuals were not the slate that was picked by the people at the convention. Okay, so after all of this happened, there were these complaints filed, and there's a lot wrapped up in that. But
that complaint was actually about the credentialing process.
Yes.
That's the terminology.
Yeah.
So when Nadine and I and the others from Miller County, Camden County, every county across the state went to convention, we had to present our photo ID. We had to match a list of people that had been turned in that were supposed to attend, and they handed us a badge, a lanyard that said either delegate or alternate with our name on it.
Yep.
You didn't see names on the RNC because they could swap out and let an alternate go to the floor, that kind of thing. But at the state convention, we were definitely segregated.
Yes.
So they were checking badges as we went in. If you were a delegate, you got to sit in the main convention hall. If you were an alternate, you sat over to the right on the other side of the barriers. And if you were a guest, you were further away.
Yes.
So they knew who was in and who was not.
Yes.
But then partway through, fairly early in the day, we voted as a group, as an entire state delegation, whether or not to accept the report from the credentialing committee.
Yes.
Now, there had been chaos. We'd been there for 4.5 hours. It took them forever to get through the credentialing. We were all like, why does this have to take so long?
And when we say it took them forever, it was the Missouri GOP that was in charge of this. It was the head of the GOP that was in charge of the credentialing at the beginning of the state convention. So when we say they, that's who we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So we went through that process, sat there. We got there. We had to be there before 9 a.m. They locked us in. Lunch was not to be served till later in the day. They promised us breakfast. It turned out to be donuts. That's not breakfast to me. That's a sweet treat.
Yep.
So we were sitting there literally with nothing to do. They did have a few of our elected officials came and spoke to us, tried to keep us engaged, keep us, calmed down. But it did. It took forever. Finally, Matt Howard, who'd written the rules for the convention, he came and read through literally every single name on the roster of who should have been there as a delegate, just to try to figure out how many empty spots we had and how many alternates should be seated in the correct county. So we had sat through this. We had witnessed this. I sat beside a lady who is a retired school teacher from Eldon, who was a Miller County delegate. And she goes, Misty, between your retail experience and inventory and databases and me being a math teacher, she's like, we would have had this done in an hour. Yep. I said, absolutely. So we were 4.5 hours in, read through all 900 plus names.
Oh, yes.
We stood, didn't do any good, really, but it happened. So after that had all happened, they finally went and got the alternates and seated them in the empty spots. All the empty spots they could, because you could only sit with your county.
Yes.
You couldn't switch counties and sit in another empty spot if your county had extra alternates. And they brought the credentialing report to the body as a whole, all 800 plus of us.
Yep.
And we voted to accept or not to accept.
Unanimously.
And there was a unanimous vote.
Yes.
There's a recording of that, a video recording that you can see maybe a third of the hall. That you can see the people in it from the back, and you can see there was no one stood in opposition, and you can hear no one voiced in opposition.
Right.
So those same people who filed the credentialing complaint were in the room and voted with us, or at least did not vote against us, to unanimously accept that credentialing report. And so then we were finally underway to have a convention.
Yes.
Because until that point, nothing was really official.
Yes.
So we said, we're here and we're all supposed to be here and we're in the right spot. So now we can move on. So again, they voted. They didn't say anything at the time. And that was the time to actually say, hey, there was something going on. There was shenanigans, whatever. We all knew there was something going on because it took so many hours.
Right.
But then we voted yes and proceeded.
Yes. Yeah. We were ready. We were ready to get down to business. None of us really wanted to be there all day long, which that happened anyway. But we were prepared. We were ready to the grassroots. We were ready to build that strong foundation. We were tired of getting blown around. So, yes, that those complaints were filed. So I had a comment after last week that someone said they didn't understand why the GOP would have done this. Well, I'm going to give you my thoughts. I can't speak specifically from their mouths, but my thoughts are what Miss A was just talking about. It's a power struggle. They knew, they could see that they were losing their establishment power in the state of Missouri because the grassroots have had enough. The everyday men and women have had enough. We've had enough of our elected officials going up to Jeff City and telling us one thing and then going into their offices, taking money from lobbyists who don't care about us, and then these legislators vote according to the lobbyists instead of their constituents. And because there's so much money put behind them, like several of the candidates running for this primary election, because there's so much money behind them, they just think that they can do whatever they want and continue to get reelected. And unfortunately, because people have been very complacent over the past however many years and not been going out to vote, that's kind of what's been happening, is these officials keep getting put back in office, and it's time that we stop it. So this is what was happening at the state convention. The grassroots rallied together. We got a slate of delegates elected to go to the national convention, and the GOP establishment were freaking out because they were losing their control. So this is my take on it. You can call me and talk to me and tell me that I'm wrong. That's fine. We can have a conversation about that. So that's why they made these challenges, because they wanted to take back the power, which is exactly what was going to happen, because after the original committee met together to decide if our truly grassroots for Trump slate was going to be allowed to go or not, and they threw that out, they then told the same GOP establishment that screwed things up in the beginning, they told them that they could now go out and handpick their 27 delegates and 27 alternates. So they were completely disregarding the voice of the people of Missouri to put whoever they wanted into these positions, people that care more about taking money in general than they do about the people of Missouri. And this is exactly what we are trying to stop. So that, in my view, is why this happened, why the GOP was trying to put their people in and take the truly grassroots people out. So I just wanted to make sure that that was a little bit clear. And like I said, as I'm talking, there's like 100 rabbit trails that I feel like I could go down, because there's just so much information packed into this. But I do want you to feel encouraged after this show. I don't want you to feel like you are more overwhelmed than you were to begin with. So I'm going to stop with that and just tell you, if you want to learn more about what's going on in your county level, find the grassroots people. The truly grassroots people are the ones that will lead you in a strong foundational way. So sidetracking from that just a little bit, because we just had our other guest walk in here, so I'm excited to dig in a little bit more, like I said, to these elected roles. But I did want to talk for just a second. I think probably everybody knows by now that there was an assassination attempt on Trump on Saturday. And thankfully, that did not go the way that the enemy would have liked. That there was definitely a hand of protection over the former President Trump. Unfortunately, there was a gentleman, Corey Comparator, which I really wanted to know exactly how to say his name, and I apologize if I am butchering that, but I want to talk about him for a little bit longer than just a few seconds, because he deserves it. If you don't know, he is the gentleman who, when shots started ringing out, he pushed his wife and daughter to the ground and covered them, laid over top of them, and ended up taking one of those bullets that was intended for Trump, ended up taking one of those bullets, and he died from that. And I was thinking about that quite a bit the beginning of this week, and it was something that I felt like God was really laying on my heart to talk more in depth about, because I see that man as truly a hero that should be celebrated. And I was talking to my son about this yesterday, because my son unfortunately loves the Kansas City Chiefs. I know I'm probably in the wrong room to say that, but I've been a Broncos fan my whole life. Yeah, you can turn me off now. That's fine. Anyway, so I was talking to my son because he has a Travis Kelce jersey. Again, very unfortunate. But I was talking about this man, Corey, is the kind of man that you should be wearing his jersey. You should be wearing his name, not because he's an idol, but because of the example that he set. Not just this example of protecting his family, which was truly beautiful, but the example that goes against this terrible, destructive narrative of toxic masculinity that's just ravaging our country. People saying that men shouldn't be the protector, that men shouldn't be the head of the home, that men shouldn't have this authority, that they should basically be, almost lower than women. And I will tell you, as a very independent female who has often struggled with words like submit. I can tell you that God has worked so much in my life to help me understand how truly important it is for men to step into and stay in the role of protector, because, you know, myself as a mom, I have a lot of responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. I can't even imagine having this weight of I'm the protector of my family. And as I was thinking a lot about Corey and his sacrifice, I was thinking, I have that husband. I have a husband who wouldn't even think twice about pushing us to the ground and covering us. And it just was so beautiful to me to think of it like that I'm one of those really blessed women that has a husband like that. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of his willingness to be the leader in our home and his willingness to be the protector, because I know that at any moment he would lay down his life for us. And truly the only reason why anybody would do that is because of Jesus. That's the only reason why any of us, any human person, would lay down their life for another person, is because of the love that God has given us. Because love comes from God. That true agape love that is willing to sacrifice themselves for another person, that can only come from God. And so you're showing these Corey and then these other men who I know are strong protectors of their families, they're modeling this beautiful example of Christ. And I think that is something that we need to celebrate over and over and over and over, and not let this destructive view of toxic masculinity take over any longer, because we need men in our country. We need men in our world. We need men in our homes. We need men who are unafraid to stand up and say, enough is enough. You are not coming after my home. You are not coming after my community. You are not coming after my country. God gave us this country to protect, and we need men who are willing to fight for that country. And I'm so grateful that I have one of those men in my life. And I just wanted to give him a shout out on air, because I think that he doesn't, and many men don't hear that enough, that we are grateful for you. We are grateful for your willingness to be men. And women, if you have one of those men in your life, I just want to encourage you today to go out and encourage them, to just remind them that you are on their side, that you are grateful for them, and that you need them, because we do. We need these men who are unafraid and unashamed. And I was gonna talk a little bit about what Corey's daughter had what Corey's daughter had said, because I thought it was really beautiful. But then I heard this podcast by Gary Bauer that I truly was moved to tears, which doesn't happen very often when I listen to something. But so I'm going to play that for you real quick, because I just think that what he says and then what he reads that Corey's daughter said is really amazing. And I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel, because if someone's already done it really well, there's no need for me to try and redo it. So I am going to see if I can play this, and hopefully it will turn out right. I am so sorry. Bear with me, because I thought I had it pulled up and then it went away. So I hope that
it was just not be as Trump
so
was
sorry.
of courage in that field. God's institution
All right.
of a man and woman uniting together to bring children into the world. As soon as the first shots rang out, Corey Comparator, a former fire chief, demonstrated what a godly man does. He instantly threw his body over his family to shield them from harm. He took a bullet as a result and surrendered his life at the age of 50. This man is a perfect example of Christian sacrifice. He was willing to die for his family, for his wife and daughters. It is the essence of our faith. This is what our faith calls us to do. This is what our Savior did. I have no doubt that Corey has stood at the throne of God and heard the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." To better understand what kind of man he was, I want to read to you an excerpt of a social media post written by his daughter, Allison. God bless this young lady. Here's what she said. What was supposed to be an exciting day that we had all looked forward to, especially my dad, turned into the most traumatizing experiences someone could imagine. But I want everyone to know what the media will not cover and will not say about him. He was the best dad a girl could ever ask for. My sister and I never needed for anything. You call him, he would answer, and he would do whatever it was you needed. And if he didn't know how, he would figure out how. He could talk and make friends with anyone, which he was doing all day yesterday and loved every minute of it. He was a man of God, loved Jesus fiercely. And he also looked after our church family as if they were members of our family. The media will not tell you that he died a real-life superhero. They're not going to tell you how quickly he threw my mom and I to the ground. They're not going to tell you that he shielded my body from the bullet that came at us. He loved his family. He truly loved us enough to take a real bullet for us. What a eulogy of praise by his daughter. Her father was a patriot. He loved Jesus. He loved America. He was an active Christian citizen. He voted. Today, he would be called a Christian nationalist and a danger to democracy. They couldn't be more wrong. He's exactly the kind of man that made America great and without whom our nation is doomed. The Trump campaign immediately started a fund to help Corey's family and two others that were wounded by the assassin. It already has raised over $3.5 million.
Yeah, so when I heard that, like I said, I was just moved to tears because I just think what an amazing legacy that man has left behind, and he deserves to be honored and lifted up, and we should have our young boys looking to men like that as their example, men that are themselves an example of Jesus Christ, because that is truly who we should be looking to anyway. And when there are men like Corey who are willing to give that example to their family, and Corey wasn't doing that so that way people would talk about him forever. He was doing that because that was what God had called him to do, and he was unafraid to follow what God called him to do, to answer that call in that moment. And so we need to make sure to lift men like him up and encourage them not to be silent, because the world might be telling you to be silent, but men, we do not want you to be silent. We need you to speak up. So please do, and please know that you are loved by many, many of us. And I just want to say thank you so much to Corey. I'm excited to meet you one day. So And also, I just wanted to say a side note. I heard on the convention last night that Trump said that they had actually raised over $6 million for that fund for Corey, and I believe the 2 other individuals who are recovering who were badly injured as well. So that was amazing to me that people rallied together like that, and I have no doubt that money will be put to good use. So anyway, changing gears a little bit here, we are going to talk about some elected official positions, and we're going to start that off by talking to the wonderful Ike Skelton, Camden County Commissioner. Are you the presiding commissioner?
I am. Good
okay,
morning.
That's what I thought. Good morning. Thanks for coming. Thanks
Absolutely.
for tearing yourself away from the Hulkster.
Yeah, well, they misprinted that, and it's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Because I was telling Miss A, I was like, wasn't he just at the convention at like 10 o'clock last night? How did he get here that fast?
Yeah, private planes and all that.
That's
you can
true.
do a lot of what you want to do. But yeah, it was a misprint, and he'll be here tomorrow, I guess. So.
All right, so you heard it here. The Hulkster is going to be at Macadoodles tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I guess 9:30, and then I think he's supposed to be at a couple other places around the lake as well.
Okay. All right, so I'm assuming Macadoodles carries his beer.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was flying off the shelves when I got there. I didn't buy any, but anyhow, yeah, a lot of people were.
Yeah, I'm curious what it tastes like. Someone, this is gonna sound terrible, but someone like Hulk Hogan, I feel like maybe I would not enjoy his kind of beer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see him being a brewmaster, but
Yeah.
I hope he hired a good one.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. He might
Sure.
drink his tea with his pinky out.
Maybe.
All right, Ike. Well, I know that you're usually not at a loss for words, which I love. So I'm just going to let you talk about what a commissioner is, what they do, and you can make it personal, what it is that you do on kind of a day-to-day basis, but then also just help our listeners understand when they are going to vote for someone, why it matters if they vote, who they vote for.
Sure. Yeah. Fascinating enough, when I ran for commissioner, that was the question. Well, what do you do? And you can look through all the statutes, and they are the duties of commission are variable depending upon the size of your county and classifications here in Missouri, and then of course your statutory requirements are all over the place, and you have to try to find those. So to really until you are really involved in it, or at least have someone explain to you what is involved, there is no book you can read really to understand it. There might be some things out there, but what we really do in a first-class county is we approve the budget. We direct and align the budget. We have an auditor who is the budget officer. However, we approve the budget, as well as making sure that those things that we believe need to be funded are getting funded, and those things that we believe are becoming wasteful, then we need to look at cutting those things and making sure that we have a balanced budget that is within in our means. We certainly we can put debt on the ballot and things of that nature, and we can do some bonding issues and other things, but otherwise we can't run in the red. So
right. I was going to interrupt you really quick, because I think just that right there, the budget, is super important to make sure that you're electing someone with integrity in that position, because you don't want someone who's just going to rubber stamp a budget.
Well, that's true. And one thing fascinating about a first-class county, and I'd imagine other counties have a little bit of that too, but we have a lot of pass-through money. So we have about $80 million that moves through our county, but we only really appropriate maybe about half of that or so. So,
okay.
So anyhow, that is a big part of it. With 3 commissioners, it is so. Yeah, maybe I should step back a little bit for those who might not understand. Unless you are a charter form of government in Missouri, there are 3 commissioners. You have a district, or an east, or a west, or first or second district, and then you have a presiding commissioner. Okay. So the presiding commissioner, generally, we preside over all of the meetings. We set the agenda. We determine when those meetings are going to happen, how they're going to happen. We then direct who is going to be given the opportunity to speak, and all these other sorts of things. In my role, I believe in as much transparency as I can possibly provide.
That's good.
And I also believe that the citizenry needs to have the opportunity to speak to their commission. Now, technically, those meetings, those agenda meetings, are the commission's meetings. If You know, if you don't want public input, you certainly don't have to allow it because it is there. We are required by statute to do our business in the public like that. We cannot, if you have two commissioners together talking county business, it has to be in public. Except for, there's some exceptions. I won't get into all of those, but so I like to do that, and I want the public input because as much as we are a representative republic, not a democracy, I still like to have those folks give me input because I don't know everything by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I have my fields of expertise, but so does everybody else, and I like that input from other people. And I believe at the end of the day, it is still the people's government, and they have the opportunity to address their government. I mean, so at the end of every meeting, I ask, is there anybody here that would like to bring anything before the commission that is not on the agenda that they would like to talk about? And every now and again, someone does, but for the most part, people don't. But I think some of that is just because they know they have the opportunity to. Therefore, it's just kind of an ease in the back of their mind that, hey, if I really need to go talk to these guys, I can bring it up in public and it's okay. So I really like to do that. The other things that we do in at least Camden County, we have the commission has the Road and Bridge Department, which is huge in and of itself. We have about a $15 million budget just for that. We have the Health Department. We have Human Resources. We have payroll. We have, in our county, we have planning and zoning and permitting, which we could get into that a little bit deeper. Camden County is a little different than maybe some because of that big body of water out there. We have planning and zoning districts.
Okay.
Generally in the state of Missouri, if you have planning and zoning, it's going to be county-wide. You can't cut it up and say you'll have some here and some there you won't. But there is a specific statute that allows those with lakes within their counties, within their boundaries, to have a district. And it can be anywhere from shoreline out to 5 miles. In Camden County, it voted in by the people, I believe in late like 98 or something of that nature, at 3.5 miles. So we deal with that department as well. I hope I didn't miss anybody in that. We have the county attorney in our department. We've generally... there had been in the budget a line item for each office holder to have some legal monies there for attorney fees, but we've taken a lot of that out of their budget, or it had been that way before I got into office. And we now have a county attorney that handles all of those different offices and all those different issues.
Okay.
We also have our insurance attorneys. If we get sued for some reason one way or another, they have their own attorneys as well. So we handle all those departments. Road and Bridge is probably the biggest thing that people have issue with because, hey, they drive them every day.
Yep.
And usually the auditor, the treasurer are not what you would call have a lot of outside customers. Obviously, the collector's office and the assessor's office and the recorder of deeds all have outside customers. They're big customer draw, as well as the public administrator. Don't want to leave them out. So you have all those other offices, and they're independently elected individuals, which makes our job a little bit more. I'm not going to say difficult, but at least a little more. It's just a little bit bigger. You would think that if we had all the budget ourselves and we just ran it that way, it would be a little easier. But each one of these office holders, at least in Camden County, get to hire and fire their people on their own, and they request their budget, and we set it. And once we set it, then they spend it as they deem fit to spend it. So we just keep an eye on how it is being spent, and then next year, if we see a lot of frivolous spending, we might claw that back a little bit. So those are some of our biggest responsibilities. We certainly do, as a body, create all of the ordinances in the county.
Can you explain an ordinance?
So an ordinance has a weight of law, and you set various things. We can set speed limits on county roads. We can dog policies, animal policies. We have created an ordinance that prohibits automatic license plate readers in Camden County, so we can restrict and prohibit things of that nature, and just various things that if the people believe something needs to be done, we could certainly in planning and zoning, we have the Uniform Land Use Code, so those carry the effect and a weight of law and regulation. So we way we kind of see it is the first district and second district are the legislative branch, if you will, and the presiding commissioner is the executive branch, and we work together to find out what we want to do. Right now in Camden County, we're doing a lot of audits and inventories that have not been done in Camden County before that I'm aware of, at least not at the auditor's level. So we're working on that, and we're getting ready to really drill down on who does and does not need to have take-home vehicles in Camden County.
Okay.
It's been a contentious thing, and we're getting ready to drill down through that and see how we can how we can cut our budget and do without so many vehicles. The fuel cost is crazy, maintenance, everything else. So we're going to try to pare down some of those things to slimline our budget. We really need to continue to put monies into road and bridge, and I loathe having to come to the people to ask them to increase their taxes to help pay for road and bridge. So we are cutting everything and trimming every place that we possibly can to help make sure that we maintain a good budget in road and bridge so that we can maintain our roads and yet not go to the people and have to ask for more and nor break the budgets in the backs of the other departments. So it's an interesting balancing act, but that's what they work on. Now, when I was asked to do this by my friends, I was told this is a part-time gig, and
I don't think I ever said that, Ike.
and it probably, I mean, it is. It can be. I'm not telling you that I work my fingers to the bone 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours a day every day. But it is a full-time responsibility, and it does require full-time attendance because you never know what's going to come up during a day. Just about every time, we have a fantastic maintenance crew, building maintenance crew and whatnot, but every time our head of maintenance walks in, and I kind of wonder, oh golly, what's happening now? You know, we've had generators blow up and roofs fall apart and other different sorts of things. So, but we have a great crew when it comes to our maintenance folks, and our supervisor is top-notch in that department. So, but keeping road and bridge maintained and trying to figure that out, and we've had a little personnel issues we've dealt with, but so it is a full-time gig, and I also believe that it is the responsibility of the presiding commissioner at a minimum to be the representative of the people for the county. Now, we certainly have state legislators that are the representatives of the people, but and in Camden County, it pretty much is just Camden County for that 123rd district, which we have a re-election here, or an election here. So they are the representative at the state level, yet I believe that I was elected to be the representative for the people at the county level, and to certainly go to Jefferson City from time to time and voice my opinion on what is going there on things that will not only affect our county, but will affect all counties and all citizenry statewide.
Right.
And so I try to maintain that role. I also believe that it is the responsibility of the presiding commissioner to represent the county and other state associations, as well as the National Association of Counties, which I attend to those meetings. I also have, there are a ton of boards and ruling districts and other districts that we deal with, board of directors and other things of that nature, the Chamber of Commerce. I try to involve myself with them a little bit to let them know what's going on, because economic development is a real thing that I believe the county does need to be involved in, or at least be at the table. So the role is as big as, honestly, it's quite as big as you want to make it. There is nothing that says that I have to attend any of these boards, or that I have to be a part of Missouri Association of Counties and participate there, or the National Association of Counties, or go to Jefferson City and lobby for or against whatever it is that's going on. But I believe that it is my responsibility to do that, so I take on those roles.
Yeah.
Didn't you go to the National Association of Counties meeting just last weekend?
Was just there last week, yes.
And what happened there, Ike?
What happened there?
Yeah,
well, it was
there's some pretty exciting news, I think.
Well, yeah, I was. Here's another responsibility I've taken on. I guess I was elected the president of the National Conference of Republican County Officials.
Wow.
So yeah, that
congratulations.
Thank you. I think it's going to be kind of exciting. I really want to work on building that, and it is exciting. But then I have to tell you, full transparency, I was the only volunteer. But that being said, I still gave up my speech, and I told those folks in there that I am a bomb thrower sometimes. I will not keep my mouth shut. I will stand up for what I believe is right. I will continue to fight against the things that I believe that are helping destroy our country and take us into a further, deeper debt, and that are taking our liberties away. And I told them that I will call a liberal communist if that's what they need to be. And believe it or not, after that, they still voted me in unanimously. So I'm hoping, and fascinatingly enough, before I accepted the job, we only had a president and a treasurer, and nobody would take over that treasurer slot. Well, now we have myself as president. We also have a vice president that stepped forward. We have a secretary that stepped forward, and we had a new person step in as treasurer. So,
wow.
Right. So, yes,
that's awesome.
It is awesome. And we have a fantastic crew of people here that really know how to work social media and other things of that nature. And we are going to, I'm going to ask them to fire things up and start participating at the national level with me and see if we can't, in Camden County, be a leader, not only in Missouri, because I've heard from some other folks that a lot of people are looking at Camden County and they say, wow, look what's going on down there.
Yeah.
And,
would they call us the Hooterville? Or
Yeah.
I think I think it's an endearing name we maybe gave ourselves. I don't know who gave it, but anyhow, it's okay. So yeah, not only to lead in the state, but start leading nationally. And I have to tell you, some of these folks we're having to bring along kicking and screaming. But with Donald Trump being what I believe will be the next president, and these national events and even locally. So here's another thing that commissioners do. The presiding commissioner of the county, especially a first class, well, all counties are the head of a lot of different things. So they're automatically on other things, and one of those is the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Okay.
So to pass grants around and other monies and so forth, we get together and we kind of look at our area and we say, okay, these roads have really high priority, these bridges, and then we kind of vote and decide on what we want to throw those priorities at. Well, part of the Transportation Advisory Committee also talks about TAP, which is Transportation Alternative Programs.
Okay.
And yes, exactly. When you get into transportation alternative programs, you're talking about electric vehicles, you're talking about biking, you're talking about hiking trails, everything but the roads and bridges that people need to have fixed. So it's very frustrating to see the millions and billions of dollars that they will throw around from the federal and state level for those types of programs, and we can't put them on the roads where people really want the money to go. So I was very excited last night to hear Donald Trump say that on day one he's going to end the EV mandate.
Yes.
That is so fantastic. But I will tell you, at the county level, we had a meeting early on, and they started talking about charging stations. And I said, hey, look, folks, who in this room, and these are elected officials and other hired county officials and local officials, said, who in this room really believes that electric vehicles are going to be the thing for this country? Nobody raised their hand.
Right.
I said, who in this room really believes that electric vehicles are going to save this and it's really a great thing? And still, again, nobody raised their hand. So I said, then why in the world are we going to take borrowed money from our children and our grandchildren and put these things in our county when we don't believe in it?
Yep.
So there are some private entities that have done this here in Camden County, and it is what it is. But there has not been anything government-sponsored. So I'm kind of excited that we haven't taken those monies and tried to do anything with that. And now I'm really glad we are because the president is what I believe will be the new president. Is going to go down the road that I think we need to go down. Yeah. Energy production, traditional energy production. Yes, exactly, right. Traditional energy production. And to get rid of these mandates. So when I was down at NACO, the Rural Action Caucus was, and this is a big outfit, rural counties. You'd be surprised how much is actually rural in this country.
Oh, yes.
But they had this big meeting, and now there was probably 500-600 people in the room maybe. And a lady from we were down in Tampa, Florida, from the Tampa district there with the United States Department of Agriculture. Maybe she was the state organizer. I didn't get her title exactly. But I do know she was at the USDA, and she was touting how we wanted you to partner, we want to partner with renewable energies and getting your energies going and all these different sorts of things, And at the end, she made a mistake and said she'd take questions. So I raised my hand. again, I am not going to. I'm not going to hold my tongue. These
Right.
things need to be said. Nobody else is saying it, so I
Yep.
stood up.
Yep.
And I said, so I kind of want to build a coal-fired power plant in Camden County. Will you partner with us, or is it only going to be the things the federal government wants us to do? Now, they didn't like that question. You could tell it immediately. And the rest of the room was kind of like, you could hear ooh, I can't believe he just asked that. But at the same time, I'm glad he asked that.
Oh, yeah. Everyone wants to.
It really does. Yeah, they really do. And I'm finding that, I'm all right. I'll take the arrows I'll take the arrows and the darts and what have you. Just as long as those people that maybe feel the same way will at least stand up and say,
Absolutely.
I'll follow what that guy's talking about,
Right.
And when you get a lot of those folks one-on-one, as a matter of fact, I met with 3 folks out of a county in Virginia. And I'm not sure. I didn't ask them, but I kind of think they're maybe on the Democrat side of the ticket. And we started talking about solar farms. And they're like, we don't want this. We're a rural county. We don't want these solar farms. They're eating up our farmland. They're taking deference over water rights for those states that have water, which that's another rabbit trail we can go
Yep.
down, because Missouri's got a problem. We're ready to deal, and we're getting ready to sell off our water.
Yep.
Folks, you got to pay attention to what's
Yep.
happening. And again, that is something that I believe a presiding commissioner and or commissioners of your county should be ready to advocate for your people and tell the state government that, nah, we don't want this
No,
stuff.
right.
Because a lot of it is coming from lobbyists, special interest. And one of the things I saw is they're trying to mirror Missouri's water rights and water statutes with what the Supreme Court and the federal government EPA Waters of the U.S. have just come up with, I don't know, last year, whatever it was. And they want to try to change the language in Missouri to match that. And I testified in committee. I said, why in the world would Missouri want to align themselves with what the EPA is doing? They think that if we match what the Supreme Court came up with, we're going to protect ourselves better. But we are not.
Right.
We are then going to put ourselves into the vernacular and the language of what's happening at the federal level. And I'm pretty confident with the folks I'm talking to on this radio station.
Yep.
We don't want we don't want to align with the
Right.
federal government. And so those are things we need to fight for real
Yeah,
heavy. But
absolutely.
those folks from Virginia, they were ready to fight with me. And,
Yeah.
so I am on the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Steering Committee.
Okay.
I asked for a vice chair on that committee. I wasn't given it. That's all right. Sometimes just being out there and being the activist, you can maybe make the most noise and be the most effective. So
Absolutely.
those are just some of the things that I think is a responsibility of the commission too.
Yeah.
To not just do what you have to do here at home, but to represent your county at every level of government.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't actually live in Camden County, but I just want to say that those who do, I think, are very lucky to have Ike as their presiding commissioner, because as you could just tell in these last 20-ish minutes, he cares. I mean, he's not just going into this job thinking it's only about roads and bridges and then my job stops there. I mean, you truly care, not just about what the commission job is, but about the people that elected you to be in that position. And I can hear that. I can hear that in people's voices when I've heard you on other radio stations when they call in. Even if they have a complaint about something, they have respect for you. And so I just want to applaud you in that you have done a great job as the presiding commissioner of Camden County. And I hope that people will continue to keep you in that position, because you're a benefit to the community for sure.
Well, I really appreciate that. And you're in Miller County, yes?
Yes.
So I will tell you, Don Abbott over there is a great commissioner.
Yep.
He's got a challenger.
Yep.
I'm going to cut a radio spot for him because I've worked with Don, and I do believe in his heart, absolutely, he cares the most about Miller County. That's what his concerns are. He
Yep.
sees the things that we talk about, and he's willing to listen. He's listened to me a lot. We've talked and got collaborated on a few different things. And Kevin Cardwell's a good guy. I don't think Kevin maybe understood what he jumped into when he
I don't
got the
think so.
job, but he is starting to come along too. And look, it takes it really takes at least a couple of 2-3 years.
Yeah.
If you don't have that base that maybe I kind of did, it really, and still, even though I still don't know the job fully,
Right.
and I'm still learning as I'm
Right.
going along here what our responsibilities and how we can do things. So it takes a while to really get up to speed, but Kevin's coming along with that too. I really enjoy working with him as well. And Don Abbott,
Yeah.
I would just...
He'll actually be on the show next week.
excellent.
On my show. Yep.
Excellent. Very good. Very
Yep.
good. He's a guy
I'm
that needs
excited
be
to have him
really-
on here.
Sure, absolutely.
Good.
I think we heard Ike say in there, and Nadine, this is kind of the focus of the show. What do these elected officials do, and why is it important to elect a certain person?
Yep.
What do their qualifications need to be? So listening to Ike, it's very obvious that the job does focus a lot on road and bridge. That's what you do for the constituents right there locally. But the job is so much bigger than
Yes.
that. There's so many more issues. And if your only focus is going to be road and bridge, then the citizens are not going to be protected from the overreach of the federal government on water issues and zoning issues and all kinds of things that are not necessarily road and bridge
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
After spending a year and a half in the legislature, and I can tell you this past year, there was a ton of time spent on the water rights bills. And thank goodness they died. But there were other things that were filed by other representatives and senators that went with that would make it blind to where we couldn't sunshine request the people that were going to get the permits. They're going to be allowed to sell the waters of Missouri outside of Missouri. So a lot of lingo there.
Right.
Currently, there's nothing in statute to our knowledge that says that the waters of Missouri cannot be sold outside of Missouri. But currently, nobody's doing that except for a couple of local municipalities, one of those being in the Joplin area across the border to the casino. But what they want to do is to make it so that the Department of Natural Resources, or the DNR, has the authority to issue permits to people who ask for the permits to sell our groundwater.
Right.
But there's not a lot of stipulations on how much they can sell, how far they can sell it, or what levels our groundwater will be brought down
Right.
by selling our water out from underneath us.
Right.
And so that's very concerning. And so, no, I don't want us to sell our waters. I don't want to give the DNR the permission to sell our waters. And then I sure don't want to make it blind
Right.
after the fact if we can't even tell
Yeah.
who's selling our waters.
Absolutely.
So those were blocked. There was lots of talk about the grassroots on where's the water bill today? Who's in charge of this? Who brought this? Whose
Right.
idea was this? And how do we get this stopped?
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful that Ike was there. He was digging into it. There are several others across the state. This is a big issue in southeast Missouri, where the cobalt mines and lead mines are. What is going on? And it, like we've talked in previous shows, it takes a village to watch all of this legislation.
Yeah, it does.
To do the research, to piece it all together. So to have somebody like Ike, who is a presiding commissioner here locally, who's also keeping up with the national issues, but more so, Ike has spent so many years, he's fine-tuning what his beliefs are. What his constitutional beliefs are, what his limited government beliefs are, what's the role of government and what's not the role of government.
Yeah.
So to have that grounding to step into commissioner, it really puts him at the advantage to represent us,
Right.
to know, well, when the government comes and asks for this or demands this, do they have the authority?
Right.
Or should I push back?
Right.
And I really applaud Ike in saying, just like the license plate readers.
Yeah.
He's like, not in my county. We're not going to do that. That oversteps what the role of government should be.
Right.
And that takes away the rights of the citizens.
Right. Yeah, I think that with the water issue, we need to do a show on that for sure, because that's really important, and I need to understand it better, and I guarantee you our entire community needs to understand it better. So we should definitely do a show on that. I want to move a little bit now. Ike, unless you had anything else you want to say about Commissioner?
I just want to say thank you all. And just to remind folks, I saw this in the Tea Party movement. I was a leader in the Tea Party movement. And when we had Barack Obama and Jay Nixon and some other folks to rally behind and fight against, We stuck together and we were very cohesive. And as soon as Donald Trump got elected, it's like that all started to fall apart because I guess we thought, okay, it's fixed, and we had majorities of Republicans at the state house, and now super majorities and a governor, and everybody just kind of faded away. But I will tell you, and now we're coalescing again because of Joe Biden, right? Well, I think that illustrates the fact that the boogeyman, as it were, is never actually going to go away.
No.
So I really pray that those folks that are involved today and active, especially in the state of Missouri today, do, regardless of Donald Trump being elected, please continue to stay active.
Yes.
Donald Trump, as good as he can maybe do, is not going to fix everything.
Right.
And there are still bad actors behind him that are still going to try to thwart his efforts and push upon us everything they want to. So we've got to stay engaged and keep moving toward a truly representative republic and in a conservatively, fiscally conservative and social as well. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you're welcome to stay and chat with us if you'd like.
I am going to run down to an event in Lebanon and see if we can't help elect a good governor.
Oh, good deal. I'm jealous.
Oh, I haven't gotten to go to any. I'm just going to say his name, Bill Eigel.
Yes.
Because I proudly support Bill Eigel for governor. He is the best choice for grassroots governor in our state. I will tell you, I heard him speak really for the first time at the state convention, and there's a difference between ear tickling and being powerful, and he is powerful. I mean, I fully support him. I believe that he is sincere in what he's doing. I will say I did not appreciate his yes vote on a certain SB 727, but we can discuss that with him when he limits Desi's power when he's governor. But anyway, I want to encourage everybody, vote for Bill Eigel. Go meet him. He has been doing events all over the state for weeks. He's not just now coming out doing $500 fundraisers. He has been all over the state in every tiny town, because there's lots of them. So if you can, he will be in Lebanon today, I believe, at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. That's where I'm headed.
What do you know where it is? I can't remember.
I think it's Josie's Cafe, and I'm not familiar.
Something like
I used
that.
to live down there, but I haven't been down there for a long time. It's on Commercial. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
So I'm going to find it somewhere.
You can. There will probably be a lot of people there. So,
I hope so.
Just look for all of the Patriots.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Ike,
me.
I appreciate it. We'll have you on again. All right. Well, we're going to dig in, Miss A. All right. So I'm going to start with the top. I'm going to start with Governor.
Okay.
And I wrote down a couple of personal questions for myself that I would think that I would want to ask myself when going to vote for someone. So really honestly, with every single elected position, whether they're going to be legislating or not, I want to know if they align with my morals.
Absolutely.
Now, especially with governor, they do have a lot of authority in the state. And so kind of with that, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that people probably saw power-wise with governor was during COVID, when a lot of governors were issuing executive orders and shutting places down. So how do we prepare? So obviously none of us knew when our original governor was elected, none of us knew that COVID was coming. So how do we know moving forward from that when there is an unknown emergency that might come up in the future? What kind of questions, or what could we look for in a candidate for governor to know that he or she is not going to abuse their executive order powers? What do you think?
Well, it's really important to understand their ideology. And again, how do they align with us?
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second. Can you explain ideology?
Ideology, it's your belief in limited government, big government, in what you think about spirituality and culture and everything else. So that makes up your ideas about all things that you address, whether it's in the government or in your life. So your ideology is who you are.
Okay.
So it's your spirituality, your cultural, and your life lessons.
Okay.
So that's your ideology. So does the governor line up with your ideologies?
Yep.
So is he similar in faith?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different evangelical faiths.
Mm-hmm.
So just because he's not Baptist doesn't mean that he's not a Christian, that kind of thing. If you're
Correct.
Catholic, be sure and dig in. Is he a Christian? Does he have that
Yes.
faith-based? Is it more than just once a week going to Mass?
Right. Right.
It's part of who you are.
Yes.
So because the governor is so important as the head of the state, he's much like the president is the head of the country.
Yes.
They don't have all authority.
Correct.
The legislature and the judicial have different authorities that split, but because he has executive, what are they called? The powers that an executive order.
Yes.
Because they have an executive order, which is what he worked under some during COVID. Mm-hmm. He has a ton of power.
Yes.
At least short term.
Yes.
But he's the one that appoints so many people
Yes.
to so many different positions,
Including judges.
in vacancies.
Yes.
So in just moving up and that kind of thing. And of course, it's the Senate's job to confirm or not to confirm.
Correct.
But they can't confirm somebody that the governor doesn't appoint.
Okay.
So it's based on the governor's choosing who he appoints for the director of Health and Human Services.
Mm-hmm.
And Governor Parson tried to appoint a guy that came out of Illinois.
Mm-hmm. I
And
remember
the
that.
grassroots got in front of that and stopped that because
Right.
we could see, based on what that guy from
Yep.
Illinois was doing during COVID, he was going to be really bad for Missouri
Yes.
in everything,
Yes.
but especially when the next COVID comes along.
Right.
And I'm not going to say if.
Right.
It's when the next boogeyman COVID comes along.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that COVID doesn't exist.
Right.
Does not exist. But I'm saying that it was not the boogeyman that we were told.
Correct.
And we treated it incorrectly.
Yes.
Both physically and politically, we treated it incorrectly. We reacted to it incorrectly. So it's really important to know how the governor is going to react when we get a gut punch,
Yes.
like COVID, because
Yep.
that was quick.
Yep.
We had to be very reactionary. And all of us were concerned when we first heard about
Yeah,
COVID.
absolutely.
Is it going to kill a family member? Are we going to get sick?
Yep.
How else is this going to affect us? Are we going to lose our job or business because of choices we make or don't make? So it's really important that that we know that governor has the authority to do what he's doing and then has the ability to also make good choices when it comes to, and then also, how does he handle stress?
That's
because
a good
it's
one.
going to be a stressful situation. But can he do it alone? Is he going to be brave? Or is he always going to fall back on the safe position?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always want to fall back on that safe position.
Right.
Because that safe position puts us in a nanny state. And I think you and I both agree that a nanny state's not what's best for us.
No.
We lose our freedoms when we do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you sit silent, other people are going to take over.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But a governor he can steer the ship of the whole state and being positive in leading through economic challenges or booms and all of that. But the governor also reacting and working with the legislature, he sets the budgetary his vision for the next
Yes.
year's budget.
Yes.
So, and then after the legislature gets to work on the budget, whether you agree with what they do or not, the governor has a line item veto for the budget. So, and it's even more powerful than just the line item. He has the ability to amend the dollars that are in a line item. So if the legislature put $10 million towards a certain project, he thought that was too much, he can cross it out and say, nope, that project is a go, but you're only going to get $5 million. And
So
he
then-
over-appropriated that one.
So then would that go back to the legislation, or the governor has that final say? I mean, he says, no, you're actually going to get $5 million and that's it. And we're done now.
The legislature has the option to go back and do an override of the veto.
Okay.
But that's
so
very
even with the
rare.
budget, the legislation can override it.
I believe so. I
Okay.
could be wrong on that one.
Interesting.
But that's really hard to do.
Okay. Yeah.
That there's a lot of process to get that done.
Right.
And typically the legislature just looks at it and goes, okay, the
Right.
governor said. And I could be wrong. It could be that the governor has the sole authority. I need to do some more research on that one.
Well, and if you do have that answer for us, you can call 573-746-8020 and we'll listen to your answer. But yeah, I think that's super important for people to know that the governor has that authority as well to basically go in and say, this is not my vision. So we're gonna tweak this a little bit. So that's, you need to make sure that person, a man or woman, is in line with what your values are. And I think ultimately, as an elected official, they need to be operating under the Constitution.
Absolutely.
First and foremost. And you're not going to know if they're doing that if you don't know the Constitution.
Correct.
So get yourself a little pocket Constitution and read it.
And the other thing you're not going to know about a candidate is if the only thing you know is how many signs they have on billboards along the highway.
Yes.
Let me tell you, the number of signs does not equate
No.
to the likability or the constitutionality of a candidate. In fact, right now, we are seeing Bill Eigel signs pop up, but he has spent his money wisely. He's held his money to the end to use it wisely right here when he needs to be peaking. Kehoe's had signs up. If you haven't noticed, then you have not been out of your house or driven down the road, because they're literally everywhere.
Yes.
But where did all that money come from?
Yep. Well, and it's not just small little signs, they're billboards.
And sometimes
Billboards
it's
are not
both
cheap.
billboards stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
We saw that on the way to the state convention, and we're like,
Yep.
oh my word.
Right.
He's buying up like everything that's available. Again, where did the money come from?
Right. Who does he owe?
Who does he owe the money or the
favor.
favors back?
Yep.
Yes, so those are important questions to ask.
Right.
And all of that information about where the money comes from can be found on the mec.gov website. That's the Missouri Ethics Commission. They have to tell you where the money came from, and they have to tell you where the money is getting spent.
Yes.
Now, there are ways to kind of play around with those numbers and only book some of those donations right here at the end, so that they don't show up in many of the MEC reports.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then there's lots of PACs and super PACs.
And what's a PAC?
A PAC is a political action committee.
Okay.
I will have to say I don't have a ton of understanding about how they work, but I do know that a PAC can give another PAC money.
Right.
So somebody can give money to one PAC, and then
Yep.
the PAC can pass it
Yep.
on to somebody else, pass it on
Yep.
to somebody else. The PACs for certain candidates don't necessarily have their name on it.
Right.
So the money passes through 2 or 3 PACs or comes from donors that you can't figure out where it comes from. And it's really hard to figure out some of those.
Yes.
So there's been some people
Yes.
that spend dozens of
Yes.
hours every time those reports come out to try to figure out where did the money ultimately come from. And
Right.
what is going on, and who do they owe the favors back to?
Yeah.
That's very important
Right.
to know.
Right. And that, I mentioned earlier that there was a bill, SB 727, and SB, by the way, stands for Senate bill. And so, if it says SB something, then it originated in the Senate. If it says HB, it originated in the House. And then there's SJR and HJR, correct?
Correct.
And that's if they worked together.
House joint resolutions and Senate joint resolutions. And if I remember correctly, and again, if somebody wants to correct me, please do, because I
Yes.
can't remember all of
Yes.
this. Those are actually filed, Senate and House joint resolutions are filed towards the end product being amending the Constitution.
Okay.
So the joint resolution, that's the difference. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Please, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to learn. There's so much to keep track of. And in my 1.5 year time, I still didn't get a grasp on all of that while I was there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that anyone fully understands.
Oh, there's some in that building that do.
Oh.
Trust me, they do.
Well, so what I was saying with SB 727, which was it was labeled as a school choice bill. That's really not what it did. But there were some very dedicated women who spent like Miss A was saying, hours and hours and hours following the money trail, and revealed some very disturbing things of where money was coming and where money was going to go through these programs that were supposedly so great for Missouri kids. So it takes a lot of work, but if you really want to know, if you want to make sure that the person you're electing is doing the right thing for the right reasons, then you're going to have to spend some time. You're going to have to dig. You're going to need to follow that money, because you follow the money and you'll find a lot of answers.
Yeah, and it's more than any one person can do.
Yes.
So I'm going to encourage you, find people that are like-minded, that are studying it, because no one person has the time to do it all.
Right.
But find other people, like Ike was talking about. Ike is like-minded with me. I've learned a lot from Ike in the years that I've known Ike, but I can tell you that if Ike says, I've done the research on this person and where their money comes from, I pretty much can depend on Ike having done the research, and I'll trust Ike, not because it's Ike, but because he does this research.
Right.
There are other people that, and I continue to meet people. Nadine and I are fairly new friends, but she and I are like-minded. She's got a different network of people than I have, but we can pool our resources, just like when the Tea Party was founded. It's not the Republican Party. Right. It's the taxed enough already people, and that we do align mostly with the Republican Party, but we're like-minded. We're smaller government.
Right.
We're more freedoms. And it's so important to build your network. Just reach out. We all get told you shouldn't talk politics or religion in public. And I'm going to tell you, you need to talk politics and
you
religion.
better start.
You need to share your faith.
Yep.
That's ultimately the most important thing.
Yep.
Politics is just what we play, the realm we play in, of who has the authority to take our rights away. But our faith is first and politics is next.
Right.
You need to know, and if your neighbors are only watching CNN, they're not getting the truth.
No.
If they're only watching Fox,
Right.
they're not getting the truth.
Right.
You can be kind, you can be gentle in your conversations, and ask some leading questions.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know where?
Right.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
And get them to go, well, I should find that out for
Right.
myself.
Yeah, I've heard really great speakers say that the best way to quote unquote debate someone, and a lot of times people see debate as a negative thing, but it's really not. It's just two people able to have a disagreement and talk about it. But they say that the best way to have a debate with someone is to make them defend what they believe. So don't try and defend it for them or disprove it for them. Make them defend it, because that's how they're going to know if that's really what they believe or not. So I think we talked a decent
we touched on the highlights of a governor. He's going to have a lot more authority than even what we realize.
Yes. And so basically, in my mind, with lieutenant governor, the biggest thing would be, if something happens to the governor, do you want that person in that role doing all of those things that we just discussed? Do you trust that lieutenant governor to lead your state the way that you did the governor? And I mean, I feel like that's a pretty easy way to examine someone. Yeah. And hopefully you'll be able to find those things out. And ultimately, I firmly believe in the power of the Holy Spirit guiding you in those decisions. And so no matter what you hear about any candidate, pray about it. Good grief. I mean, take it back to Scripture and say, what does God say about the leaders? What are they supposed to be? Who are they supposed to be? What kind of men and women are they supposed to be? And then take that back to the information and say, yeah, this candidate closely aligns with it. Obviously, we're all humans, so there will never be a perfect candidate.
Correct.
There will always be sinners, and if they are saved by grace, then they have that. But we all sin. I mean, so there's always going to be something wrong with a candidate. just like there's always going to be something wrong with me. So I think that's the biggest thing with Lieutenant Governor. I don't know if there's anything specifically that they do that you know of.
I've never really studied the role of the Lieutenant Governor. I do know under Parson that Kehoe has been tasked with promoting commerce in Missouri.
Okay.
And that has been concerning the vision of those two men.
Yes.
That they have spent a substantial amount of time outside of Missouri, outside of our country, courting corporations to come and do business in Missouri, not necessarily pushing back on foreign ownership of property in Missouri. And that is super concerning. So it is important to know kind of what a vision of who's running for lieutenant governor, because though in Missouri, the lieutenant governor is not tied to the governor. They're two separate races. Unlike at the national level, your vice president is automatically elected with your president.
Which is not constitutional, by the way.
Really?
Yes. No. Did you not know this?
No, we should
I did not know
that.
this either. But
so
keep going.
So that's a tradition, not a law. So there's a lot of that goes on in our government. But just keep in mind that even though somebody didn't run for governor, what their specialty is may still be used by a governor that they work underneath.
Correct.
So whatever their vision is, whatever their ideology is, they're going to work for Missouri with their own insight into the project. So whatever the governor taps the lieutenant governor to do, or whatever is traditionally the lieutenant governor's role, some of it's ceremonial, a lot of it is the backing up, but that is ultimately important. If someone were to either have to leave office because of doing something that had them removed, or they resign, or God forbid they die in office, that the lieutenant governor steps right in, which is how we got Mike Parsons.
I was just about to say that's how we got Mike Parsons.
Exactly. So it can happen quickly. It can happen in the blink of an eye, whether it's a car accident or a heart attack, or some kind of misconduct that they did, that they're removed or stepped down.
Yeah. Be prepared.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I really want to talk about Secretary of State, because as I was telling you the other day, this fascinated me when I finally found the website on the Missouri Gov website that gave a breakdown, like an intense breakdown of each individual position. I was shocked at how much the Secretary of State does, or how much they're over. And I just couldn't believe it. I had no idea, and I'm pretty sure most people don't. Honestly, my husband thought this was a joke, but honestly, when I used to hear Secretary of State, I literally pictured a secretary, someone who's taking notes and scheduling appointments and stuff like that. And I just always thought, that is so weird. Why do we have that as an elected position? I mean, I'm being real. Like, that's how basic my knowledge has been. And so don't feel bad asking questions that you might think are juvenile or stupid, because I have already been there and asked them, and I am unafraid to ask questions to learn. So please don't be afraid to ask questions.
I'm excited to learn more about the Secretary of State, because I know you contacted me and said, I found all this and I'm so excited.
Yes.
And it's so much.
Yes. Well, so kind of what got me digging was in our state, Missouri, our current Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, had, I believe it was last year, had issued a statement, or a rule basically, saying that there were certain standards that public libraries needed to abide by regarding protecting children from pornographic material. And if these public libraries did not abide by these standards, then they would not receive their funding, because the government has a public library, a state library, that is overseeing these other smaller state-funded libraries, public libraries around the state. So which I applaud that. I mean, I think that is a great motive, that you want to protect children from those materials, because unfortunately the libraries have become a really dangerous area. So also, just kind of a public service announcement, don't let your children pick out any single book that they want at the library because there are a lot of very inappropriate books at public libraries. So be proactive, parents, in what your children are reading. There's hidden messages all over. Anyway, so Jay Ashcroft had issued this statement, basically. And I was so confused because obviously he's not a legislator. He's not supposed to be making laws. He doesn't have executive order powers, so to speak. And so I did not understand how he was able to do this. I didn't understand how he was able to have the authority to say, you don't get your funding anymore. And on the flip side of that, it made me kind of nervous because we have to always remember that whatever we allow the government to do on our behalf, if we give them more power than what they're truly supposed to have, they can definitely in the future use that against you as well to implement things that you don't like. So that's why small government is very important, even with good things. If they do not align with the Constitution, then that's not their job. Anyway, so it set me on this trail of trying to figure out how the Secretary of State was able to have this authority. And so what I found out is that the Secretary of State has certain departments that they're over, one of them being the public libraries, the state libraries. And so he is able to issue rules, and that rule is open to public comment for 30 days. And then people can, comment in favor, against, whatever, but it's open for 30 days. And then I believe then JCAR, which is, you're going to have to help me with what it means, joint. I can't believe, I had it written down, and I think that I was like, oh, I'll remember that. I'm so sorry. I'm going to find it and let you know. But anyway, so JCAR is basically a committee of individuals that get together and decide if these rules are okay or not. Excuse me. For example, if a bill says that a certain department can promulgate the rules, like with SB 727, it said that DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, along with the treasurer, were going to be able to promulgate the rules after the bill was passed, which this is not always a bad thing. There are some times that a bill, the main idea of the bill needs to pass, and then there are things that are going to come up as it goes along that these departments realize, okay, that actually didn't work. So we do need to make some changes to it. So JCAR is supposed to come in and look at those rules and decide if those are upholding the original statute, if they are a benefit, if that's what they're supposed to be doing, not just this department saying, we're going to make this rule, and it goes completely against the original intent of the statute. Unfortunately, that's not what JCAR normally does, from my understanding. They usually just rubber stamp things and send it through. And so that was how Jay Ashcroft, the Secretary of State, was able to do this with the funding with the libraries. Was he issued this rule because he is over the libraries. The Secretary of State Department is over the state libraries, and so then he could issue this rule. Like I said, it was open for comment for 30 days, and then JCAR approved it, and then it was done. Did you find out what JCAR is?
JCAR is the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules.
Yes, so that's pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. Excuse me. So the Secretary of State, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, because no one ever talks about this as a role of the Secretary of State, and I also think that people forget how important it is to preserve history. So the Secretary of State oversees all of these records, all of the Missouri records dating back to the 1700s. They basically are holding our history in their hands. And so they have all of these records that they oversee, and they add to it, and they're supposed to be preserving it. Well, I don't know if you remember, but during Nazi Germany, they were burning books. They did not want people to know history. They didn't want people to be able to read what things were like or how they could maybe overturn the Nazi regime. They didn't want any of that. And in fact, I was actually just reading also that Russia is currently doing this with their history, that they are writing history specifically around like the Cold War type era moving forward from, this is my understanding, from basically Putin's point of view. And so they're now instituting this kind of new history into their education system. This is happening right now in Russia. This is what I just read this week. Also, Woodrow Wilson, who was not a good president, was basically the start of removing history in our country. He was so racist, and like literally racist, that he was removing mention of Black Americans in history books. And so then moving forward, there has been a complete loss of these amazing Black heroes all throughout American history that people have just lost, like people like Crispus Attucks. I mean, is that Crispus? I'm sorry. Okay, there's a boy on my son's baseball team that has the first name Atticus, and every time I heard it, I thought of Crispus Attucks. And anyway, he was the first, basically he was a Black American. He was a free man, but he was the first blood spilled during the Boston Massacre. And there's so many men and women, Black men and women throughout American history that have basically just been erased from the public education system. And that really started with Woodrow Wilson. So I say all of that to circle back around to the Secretary of State has all of this in his hands. He has the Missouri history in his hands. And I think that's super important to make sure that we are electing someone to be overseeing that, who's going to make sure that they are preserving history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we need all of it. We don't just need the good history. We definitely don't just need the bad history. We need all of it, because that's the only way that we will hopefully learn from history and not continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over. And so that might not seem like a really big deal, but to me, that's huge. It is so important to make sure that we have someone in that Secretary of State position who takes that role seriously and wants to protect the history that we have. So that was, yeah, I just was so excited when I found all this information, because it was answering so many questions for me as to what this person does and why it was important to make sure we had someone who not just aligned with my ideology, but also are they a person of integrity? Are they transparent? Are they accessible? Are they going to listen to my concerns? Are they going to put people in these committees, the positions that they're over, records and economic stuff and libraries and HHS? I mean, all of these things, are they gonna put people in those positions who I can trust also? Because like you were saying with the governor, he appoints a lot of people in different positions. And, you know, if you don't trust the main guy, you're probably not going to trust the branches that come out of that. So I hope that that's helpful with the Secretary of State giving a little bit better understanding of why it's important to have someone who believes in the things that you believe in preserving history and preserving the Constitution, and making sure that those things are there for us for as long as we're here on this earth.
Another big one with the Secretary of State, and it's been big in the last few years, is what is their role in our elections?
Yep.
They are our election authority.
Yep.
They're the ones that write ballot language and get it approved to get it on the ballot for amendment issues. So when you see less than 100 words show up on a ballot, but it can add 30 plus pages to your Constitution in an
Which
amendment,
happened.
which did happen. That's what happened with marijuana. The fear is that some of those things in those 30 pages will actually get applied to other industries and other things,
Yep.
not just the marijuana industry. But the election issue is so big. Are they following the law on who's on our voter rolls? How do they
Right.
how do they go and become a voter in Missouri? How do we get them off of the voter rolls when they die, when they
Yep.
move, whatever else it is? What is their philosophies on voting machines,
Yep.
paper ballots, hand counting,
Yep.
auditing? All of that is done by the Secretary of
Yes.
State's office. So it is super important. I don't think there's anybody that has similar thoughts and feelings that we do here today that think that there wasn't some election stolen,
Yes.
portions of the election stolen in the last election.
Yep.
And that's been going on in my belief.
Yep.
It's been going on for decades.
Yes, it has.
You go back and study JFK and
Yeah.
how his dad rigged the elections in Chicago to get him in. That's a whole nother. I mean, that's radio show after radio show on JFK
I know.
alone.
I know.
But to think that that isn't happening in Missouri,
Yeah.
of course it is.
Yep.
I mean, back during the Obama era, when those elections were happening and the Black Panthers were standing outside of the polling places in downtown St. Louis and downtown Kansas City and intimidating voters and keeping the polling stations open till 11 o'clock and midnight and 1 o'clock, I think it's really suspect that little places like Miller County, very rural, spotty internet, that we can have all of our ballots counted, all of the numbers into the county clerk, all of that then transmitted however it goes, whether it's digitally, a phone call, a fax, however it's done, I don't know the process, that Miller County can have their numbers into the Secretary of State within an hour,
Yeah.
usually, of an election.
Yep.
And it takes those urban areas till the middle of the night to get their numbers transmitted.
Yeah.
So
Right.
in the back of my mind, it's they already know how many votes
Yeah.
they need to find to outvote the rural areas because
Right.
we closed and we gave our numbers up, and they still are allowing people to vote.
Right.
And that's being generous, allowing people. But what else is happening?
Right.
So the question comes down to how proactive
Yes.
is the Secretary of State in digging into, sure, maybe we do trust our voting system in Missouri. Maybe Jay does trust it. Maybe he's seen enough that he does trust
Right.
it. But is he being proactive
Right.
to ask all the challenging questions
Yep.
to make county clerks across the state uncomfortable to say, I know you've been in this position for decades. We have some local ones that have
Yes.
been a clerk for a long time. I know that you have good people in your office, that your systems are working, but where is there a possibility?
Yes.
Not a likelihood, a possibility that something could go wrong.
Right.
How do we protect if we don't have elections, we don't have a country.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
just as
very
important
true.
as our borders.
Yep.
If we can't have free and fair elections
Yep.
so that we can elect good ideologically aligned candidates with conservative beliefs that align with us. If we can't elect a good governor or a good Secretary of State or a good representative going forward because the system is rigged
Yep.
and we're not asking questions,
Yeah.
we don't have an America anymore.
Right.
Not the ones that we thought the ones we grew up in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people as it is right now who don't go out and vote because they don't feel like their vote matters. I mean, if it really didn't matter, it would be non-existent.
Going
voting.
back to the previous
Right.
presidential election, the man that's occupying the White House currently couldn't put together 100 people, that's being generous, for a rally. And the one that didn't win last time, President Trump, supposedly, was having tens of thousands of people coming to a rally, and Biden supposedly won that election. Now, I understand there are battleground states, there are battleground counties, and it comes down to very small areas in the country actually pick the president. but the rest of us have to be able to cast our ballot.
Absolutely.
We have to be able to elect our mayors, our commissioners, our governors, our school board officials. Who's to say that somebody's not manipulating school board elections somewhere?
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of losing the power of an education system.
Yep.
Again, a whole nother series of shows could be done on our education system.
Oh, yes.
And how it is important
Yes.
to get those
Yes.
overturned. But
Absolutely.
elections come back to the Secretary of
Yes.
State, and he does always need to be acting as if they're being stolen.
Yes.
We need to be looking at every avenue
Right.
of protecting that.
Right.
It's as important as
Absolutely.
our history.
Yeah. And the other thing with the Secretary of State also, which there's going to be several amendments coming up on the next two ballots in August and November. But the Secretary of State is also oversees verifying the signatures for IP reform. And IP reform is the initiative, So IP is initiative petition, which is when a group of people decide that they want an issue put on the ballot. Is it always an amendment, or can it be something else as well?
No, it's always an amendment.
Okay, so if they want an amendment to the Constitution put on the ballot, then they go out with their little clipboards and pens, and they go to different areas around the state, and they are supposed to be truthful in telling people what it is that they're getting signatures for, which we know for a fact was not accurate, specifically with the casino amendment, because we have video of those signature gatherers lying about what it was actually for, which we can get into that at another date because it'll be on the November ballot most likely. Anyway, so the Secretary of State verifies that every signature that they got on that initiative petition is a registered voter in the state of Missouri. So that's super important because, these people that are gathering signatures for a casino amendment on the Constitution could go to Vegas and start asking people there who are obviously in favor of casinos, most likely, hey, you want to sign this petition? All of that to say that you have to be a registered voter to have your signature mean anything on an initiative petition in the state of Missouri. And the Secretary of State his office has to go through and verify every single one of those signatures before that petition is valid, before they can have their amendment put on the ballot. And then the Secretary of State is also in charge of making sure that whatever that question is understandable to the general public, which there's actually an amendment coming up on August 6th, an amendment question that is a revote from 2022 because it was ruled that the original wording of the question talking about funding the Kansas City Police Department was not worded correctly enough that the majority of the general population really understood what the amendment was. And so they're actually having a revote on that, and that'll be on August 6th. Right? Yes, August 6th. That'll be on August 6th. There will be that question for that amendment. And I'm going to talk more about what the amendments are in a week or two because we are running out of time, which is crazy because 2 hours flew by today. But anyway, so the Secretary of State oversees so many things and is extremely important to many areas of Missouri. So, I hope that that's helpful in understanding a little bit more about what the role of that position is, but, more specifically in understanding why it matters who you put in that position. And the other thing that I think is always good to keep in mind is, especially with state positions, a lot of times those people run for a lower level first in order to work their way up to governor or senator or whatever. And if they can get elected one time, then their name is out there. They have this recognition. It's usually a little bit easier to continue to get elected. So from the ground level, that's why your commissioners, your county auditors, your county clerks, all of those, your school boards. I mean, all of those positions, maybe they're not saying that they want to move up to higher position, but you never know. I mean, the world changes, people change. That's not anything against them. So that's why it's important from the very ground level all the way up to the state and national level to make sure that you are vetting these candidates so you know if you want them in that position, and then even more so, do you want them in a higher position 10, 15 years down the road?
In Missouri, we have term limits for our senators, for our representatives, and for the governor's position. And just going from memory, I would say approximately 80% of those running for what they call higher office.
Yes.
And that's a statewide office. That would be your Secretary of State, your treasurer, your lieutenant governor, your governor. Is that it? Higher office. Auditor.
Attorney general.
Okay. All of those positions, especially those in the well, the attorney general is a little bit different because it needs to be an attorney.
That's true.
So thinking of the treasurer, the Secretary of State, the lieutenant governor, and the governor, probably 80% of those have come out of the House and the Senate.
Right.
So it is important to vet before you elect them into those roles, because it is after 8 years in the legislature, or can be total of 16, 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate. If their goal is, or if that's become their job, then they're looking for another office to run for. How do they stay in government? And the name recognition is huge.
Right.
The institutional knowledge is huge.
Right.
The connections, the campaigns, the campaign funds, all of that. So it is really hard once they're started on that trajectory to stick a cog in the wheel and get it stopped.
Absolutely.
Because they've learned so much about how the system works.
Right.
Us on the outside as lay people, it's really hard to learn it.
Yeah.
Because we've got jobs and we've got kids and we've got everything else. We're busy paying taxes and taking care of a house. We don't much pay attention until we're like, well, crap. That's gone too far now. Now we have to get involved.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn because they've worked the system for years to get where they are to be able to do the stuff that's now I believe is overreach.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't think most people go in, run for a position thinking I'm going to go in to get all this power, to get the overreach.
Right.
It's a creep. It's the government creep.
Right.
So there are other positions that are on your list to talk about, but that is important to vet those candidates going into the House of Representatives. So there's 163 districts, something like that, in the state of Missouri. A lot of those sort of follow county lines, but it depends on your population density. There are several that are in St. Louis County. Then Miller County has 2. One that's the majority of Miller County and another one that has a sliver.
Yes.
Camden County works the same way. The majority of it's in the 123rd, and then the sliver that's Representative Knights. And so it is really important. Their Central Committee is your closest, but in the state government, your representatives are your closest.
Yes.
And take the time to know their name.
Yep.
To get to know them and for them to know your name and your face.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot. Show up to an event or two, introduce yourself, maybe talk about one of the issues that's on your heart so they kind of remember who that is. So when you write the email or you make the phone call or you meet them on the street somewhere or go visit their office, they're like, oh yeah, that's my constituent and that was their concern.
Right.
The more that you're in their ear and they hear from you, the more likely they're going to think about you before they vote.
Yes.
It's very important not to just elect them, not to just go fill in the oval on the ballot and then walk away and never interact with them again.
Yeah, that's
They need to know they are our employees.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to just hold that over their head every time I have a conversation with them. They worked hard to get there, and I won't diminish that. But they do need to know that the boss is watching.
Yes. Yep.
The boss is. So the representatives get 2-year terms. They get 4 2-year terms before they max out. Senators are elected. They can be elected for 2 4-year terms.
Correct.
But they max out both sides of the House on at 8 years.
Correct.
And so the legislature has the Speaker of the House. There's a lot of House rules. They don't currently have the filibuster. So once the floor leader or the speaker sets your agenda and decides which bills come before the House, the representatives do get to cast their ballot, do get to cast their vote for each one of the pieces of legislation that's been introduced. There's lots of steps before you get to it on the floor, but they're just one of 163 votes, if that number's correct.
Yes.
On the Senate districts, there's a lot fewer of those.
Yes.
But the Senate has the filibuster. So watching Senator Ike work the last 8 years, and my friends that have watched him all of those 8 years, I've only been watching closely the last couple. He was bold enough,
Yes.
fearless enough, that he would stand on the Senate floor and filibuster to stop something. So that's as important, if not more so, than just casting your vote, is to be able to find some place in the rules that you can slow the machine down
Yep.
to stop something bad.
Right.
And I know a lot of people call him an obstructionist this session. Praise God, he
Yes.
is an obstructionist,
Right.
because he stopped those same water bills that we were talking about.
Yep.
They got stuck in that backlog of things where he was filibustering things. And I can tell you that several of us were putting a heads up to him and his chief of staff. These water bills are problems.
Right.
And you've got to stop them. And so he would look at everything that was on the docket and go, we'll filibuster that because we don't like it. And the water bills are lined up behind it. And so that will stop that.
Right.
And so that's the type of man that I've been observing in Senator Ike.
Yes.
That I believe will be a good governor, because I don't believe he'll be afraid to veto a bill once it gets to the governor's desk,
Yes.
if it were to pass through the Senate and the House.
Yes.
So a senator is so important. Is he independent enough to filibuster on his own? Will he join forces with other like-minded senators? Because actually a filibuster is easier to do with a team than
Yes.
it is by yourself.
Yes.
So you can pass the baton and do 1 hour, 2 hour stints, or have a conversation back and forth just to filibuster. And once the Democrats see that you're serious and you're not going to give up, they'll back down.
Yeah.
It may take a few hours, it may take a whole day, but you can stick to that filibuster. In the background, typically what's happening is there's deals being made. There's a compromise, there's an amendment. We can either fix the bad stuff or we're still going to kill it.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the importance of roles in government, the legislature is really important, but not as important as that governor, because he has one authority. But the legislature and the Senate work as wholes.
Yes.
So your representative is very important.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
they need to be able to work with each other. I'm not saying work across the aisle, but with each other in the same party.
Yes.
To either push good stuff forward,
Right.
or to block the bad stuff.
Right. And ultimately, it should be what your constituents want.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, it's not just we elect these legislators and then they go up and do whatever they want. They're still supposed to be representing us, our wants, our needs, what's good for the community, and putting forth legislation like that, not just, hey, I want this so that way I can get this kickback from someone else. It's very important to hold them to that as well.
Correct. Sorry, I jumped across a couple of things.
No,
A couple
you're
of people
fine,
there,
because
but-
we are even past 11 o'clock now. Like I said, the 2 hours flew by. I hope it flew by for everyone else and you weren't just sitting here painfully listening to us go on, because I feel like I could have these conversations for hours and hours and hours, because there's so much to learn, and I just feel like I'm a sponge right now soaking up so much stuff. And I'm hoping that that's being passed on to other people as well, that you're enjoying this, that you're learning from it. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more positions that we need to talk about. So, and we're getting really close to the August 6th election. But, that this is just one election. So you need to learn this for the future as well. So we're going to continue to talk about this in future episodes, and hopefully you will feel more and more prepared as time goes on. But
Before we're done, there's
Yes.
one gal that's running for treasurer of the
Yes.
state of Missouri.
Yes,
that
Lori Rook.
I'm really excited about
Yes.
her running. She is not held elected position anywhere that I'm aware of. She's a mom with young kids,
Yep.
an accountant, but she is gung-ho. She's pretty. That doesn't hurt anything at
Yeah.
all. But that's not why she's attractive to me.
Right.
She's attractive to me because she's like-minded.
Yes.
She wants smaller government. She wants to know where her money's going.
Yep.
She also, I believe, is on the same side with things like 727.
Yes.
That bad education bill. Some of the things that were in education were actually promulgated out to the treasurer's
Right.
office to make decisions
Right.
on what software and what entities you partner with the state to facilitate the moving of the money, the moving of the information through ESAs, the Education Savings Account, and other things. So it is very important when you delegate by statute,
Yes.
by ordinance, those types of things to the treasurer, that your treasurer is to be trusted.
Yes.
That she's not just hiring on an entity that she owes a campaign favor back to.
Absolutely.
Or whatever else it is, that she is a like-minded, small government, constitutional-based individual. And I'm excited to cast a vote for Lori Rook this time.
100%. Yes, that's Lori Rook for treasurer. I absolutely 100% support her. I believe she has pretty much all of the grassroots support, at least that I know of. I heard her speak the other night, and even if I hadn't already been in favor of her, I'm pretty sure she would have won me over the other night, just because, like you said, she's not been in an elected position. She's very down to earth, and she's one of those people that said enough is enough. And so she's standing up, she's putting her money where her mouth is, and taking action. And you know, she's a mom with kids. That's not easy. It's not easy to do anything but be a mom and raise your kids. That is very difficult in and of itself. And so for her to take on another role that is so important for our country, you can just see that she cares, and that she absolutely is all for transparency, and she does not agree with the way that a lot of things have been done, and she wants it to change. And so yes, absolutely, I think Lori Rook for treasurer is the best option and for the state of Missouri. So I hope that you all feel the same way, and we get some great elected officials in these positions. Is there anyone else you wanted to give a shout out to? I mean, we can go through these positions and say who we like, but
Right.
I don't know.
I think there are people out there that are waiting for us to say who we're voting for, or who
Yeah.
we're supporting, because just like we talked earlier, it takes a ton of time to vet these candidates.
Yes, it
for
does.
yourself personally, not or withstanding the system that's been in place for the Central Committee that's still just voluntary. That's a whole nother show
yes,
too.
we are going to
there's so
have a
much
show
to
about
cover.
that. Yep.
But to get to know these people, to know what their hearts are, to know what their motivations are, it's really hard. So I'm gonna encourage you. You know, we're here at the Lake area, in the Miller County race. Don Mayhew does not have an opponent this time.
Correct. And he's state representative.
He's a state representative for Miller County Plus. In the Camden County District, Dr. Lisa Thomas is being challenged by Jeff Vernetti.
Yes.
That's an interesting race. There's been some mudslinging, some accusations.
There's been some
made.
mudslinging by Lisa Thomas.
There has been. So I encourage you to get out and get to know them.
Yes.
Get to know what their community involvement has been, what it's like, where they actually do live.
Yep.
I'm going to try to be careful with what I do say and what I don't say.
Yeah, I
Here.
won't be. I mean, I am 100% on board with Jeff Vernetti for a few reasons. One is because Lisa Thomas told a group of homeschool dads, which my husband was a part of, to their faces that she was going to vote no on SB 727. They came to her with concerns about homeschoolers being a part of this bill. They did not want to be a part of it. They wanted to be removed. And that was what they said. We want to be removed from this bill. There was not another caveat of, or you could do this or this or this, and then we'd be fine with it. No, it was, we want to be removed from the bill. She told them that she was a hard no on the bill unless, according to her, she said, unless this change was made. Okay, so that was the change that we wanted, was homeschoolers removed from the bill. That was not done. She switched her vote to a yes after telling several of her constituents to their face that she was voting no. So that's an issue. She then also has gone around making accusations towards her opponent, Jeff Vernetti, who, listen, I don't know the heart of people, but I know what I can find out. I know who Jeff Vernetti seems to be. I know that he is very involved in the community. I know that he has poured all of his money, a lot of his own money, into this campaign. He has had signs out for months. He is serious about this because, not because he doesn't have anything to do, he's extremely busy, but because he cares about the community, and he cares about it not just for right now, he cares about it for the future. And you can see that with the fact that he's involved in the community. He has ballparks. He's part of Ballparks National, which brings tons of money to the lake area and is a benefit to the community. It's not a casino that can bring a whole bunch of harm with it. The ballpark brings a lot of good and a lot of revenue to our community. And he is very accessible. He is at tons of events all the time. There will be a forum that he and Lisa Thomas will both be at next Tuesday night. I believe it starts at 5 o'clock at the Encore. And I just encourage you, go and talk to him, talk to her, hear from them, and make your own decision. But I'll just tell you right now, I mean, Jeff Vernetti 100% is the best choice for the lake area. Unfortunately, I'm not Camden County, so I can't vote for him, but I would if I could. And so he's definitely the best choice. And we've told him, we said, listen, you have 2 years. You have 2 years to prove that you should be in this office. And if you don't, then we will elect someone else to take your spot, just like we're doing right now, because Lisa Thomas has proven not to be the best representative for the Camden County area. And I don't mind saying that. I would say that to her face if she was sitting right here. I'm not trying to just start a verbal war over the microphone. She really has not been the best representative for our community. And I think that Jeff Vernetti deserves that chance because he has proven that he's willing to put his money where his mouth is and take this fight to the next level. So, we'll see what he does. We'll hope and pray that he abides by what he has said and that he has a great term up in Jeff City, and a lot of good comes from that.
So a couple of things I've watched in that race. One of those is being the number of friends that have told me, I just got another postcard in the mailer.
Yep.
I just got another postcard.
Yep.
I have one friend that told me they've received 6 pieces, and another friend that's received 7 total pieces. Those mailings are extremely expensive.
And those are from
Dr. Lisa Thomas.
Yes.
Actually, some of those are not from her.
Correct. They're supporting
They're
her.
supporting her. Some of those pieces have been from Americans for Prosperity.
Yes.
That particular organization was created by the Koch brothers, and during the Iowa caucuses and just before, they pulled the majority of the American for Prosperity team out of Missouri, sent them to Iowa to campaign door to door for Nikki Haley.
Okay.
They're a Never Trump organization. Let me say that again. AFP has been a Never Trump organization. That's who's partnering with Lisa Thomas.
Yep.
That's who's supporting her. They were very supportive of HB 727. I think there's some, I'm going to go back to my statement earlier. Follow the money.
Yes.
Follow the money. Who's giving money? Where's the money changing hands? And what favors are expected back?
Yep.
Expected back.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that when the candidate took the money that they thought they were going to have to do it. I don't know what those conversations were. But what do those organizations that give tens of thousands of dollars to a person, to a PAC, or to a mailer in support of a person, what do they expect in return? So just like the governor's race where we're seeing Kehoe signs all over the place, Thomas has got huge backers from AFP and other people. Why?
Right.
Question, though, why?
Yep.
whether you like her or not.
Correct.
I've met with her. I've
Correct.
talked with her. Did some things in other elections with her. Likable person typically, but we don't always vote for our friends.
Right.
They're not always our best representatives.
Right.
So follow the money. What's going on? You talked about Jeff Romanetti being told you have 2 years, and if you're not a great candidate for this, we can find somebody else. Well, if a freshman with none of those favors being expected,
Right.
I believe has less influence
Yes.
than somebody that's going into their third term,
Right.
who has already had some of those influences.
Right.
So we've been talking the last 4 years or so, when we see how deep and entrenched the establishment is, the uniparty, the big government Republicans, whatever you want to call them, the rhinos, how entrenched they are. We've had a lot of people say, vote everybody out.
Yeah.
Start with everybody do.
Yeah.
If there's somebody new that runs for office that's never run, elect them. And I'm like, well, I really think we ought to learn a little bit about where
Yep.
they came from and what they believe.
Right.
But honestly, we could do a lot of good for our state if we would elect new blood frequently instead of just passing these people from lower levels up to higher levels. And every time you run for another office,
Yeah.
you have to take money from people who
Right.
then expect
Right.
things in return.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And there is definitely something to be said for people, men and women, that are in positions for a while, but are still representing the community well. Someone like Mike Moon. I mean, he doesn't need to leave, in my opinion.
Correct.
He is still doing the job that he was elected to do. He has not been bought and paid for, and is not ignoring his constituents. He is truly fighting for the benefit of Missouri. Honestly, I think the same with Bill Eigel, that he is fighting for the benefit of Missouri, and so he should be in that position. He hasn't lost that privilege yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Go and study those MEC reports, or find somebody that has, and then go ask, okay, how do you think that the donors influenced votes, or influenced
Right.
what decisions they're
Right.
making? So when people have dug into Bill Eigel's past, well, so and so made a donation.
Right.
Well, yeah, but did he then carry their bill?
Right.
Did he then vote for their bill? Did he support their pet project, or was it a one-time donation and they're like, we're not going to give that guy any more money because he didn't do what we told him to?
Right.
So don't look at just a 1 second snapshot of
Correct.
somebody's life.
Correct.
Look at their values, but look at where the money comes and goes to, and how that influences their votes and their decisions.
Correct. Yeah, and let's really quick, let's just talk also about Secretary of State, who's running for Secretary of State. Denny Hoskins is definitely my vote for Secretary of State. I think that he will do a great job, and I think that he has had a good record in the Senate.
Senate?
Yes.
Senate, uh-huh.
He has been a senator in Missouri, and I think that he has a good record. I think that he has strong values that he will carry with him. Again, we need to hold them to that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we need to, because it's easy to fall prey when no one is holding you accountable. And I think, and so we can vote for these people, we can hold them accountable, and then we can make another decision in a couple of years. But definitely Denny Hoskins for Secretary of State. Attorney General, for sure, Will Scharf.
Yes.
Is the best candidate for that. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. I'm not saying that these people are perfect. I'm saying that they are the best candidate. And that's my point of view. That's from a lot of these grassroots people that I have been surrounding myself with and listening to and reading and educating. And so that's who I would say Will Scharf is for sure the best candidate for Attorney General in our state.
Will Scharf is on President Trump's legal team.
Yes.
He helped get our 2 good Supreme Court justices that
Yep.
overturned Roe versus Wade
Yep.
onto the Supreme Court. He was on the teams that did that. He has defended Trump in several of the litigations where they have made accusations against our favorite president. And Will is very likable.
Yeah,
he can be a
he
little
is.
bit stern at times, but he's very likable. Get to know him. If you run into him at a campaign event, walk up to him. He's very friendly. One of the reasons that I would choose Will Scharf over Andrew Bailey. Andrew Bailey was a Parson appointee.
Yes.
But I do believe that Andrew Bailey is one of those that's been holding some of those campaign donations till after this last deadline, so you can't see where the money's coming from. It's very concerning to me watching Andrew Bailey's sign placement now. They're always with Kehoe. They're always with Huff. They're with the Missouri Cattlemen's Association. I'm a farmer's daughter who runs cattle. But what I observed in my year and a half in the Capitol is the cattleman is for big government.
Yep.
They're for big farms. They're not for the little farmer.
Right.
They're not on our side.
Right.
So for the Cattlemen's Association to put their stamp of approval on Andrew Bailey, this is very concerning to me.
Right.
Same with Kehoe.
Right.
They've definitely backed Kehoe, and that's
Right.
concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of those things are worth paying attention to for sure. And, like we've been saying this whole time, do your research. But if that's overwhelming to you, find people you trust who have done the research and then do more research, because there are people in all over the place that I would have originally trusted their point of view on candidates, and I'm seeing them post things now that they are supporting candidates that I would never support. And so I just think that it's important to surround yourself with people you trust, but continue to do your homework. And like I said, if you are a follower of Christ, you take everything back to prayer and to the Word of God, because that is where you will find the ultimate truthful answers.
So I believe that Ike would be open to answering questions. If you have questions about candidates, Ike would be.
Yes.
I know that you would be.
Yes.
I would be as well.
Absolutely.
Now, you all don't know my name. You just know me as Massey.
Yeah.
But reach out to Ike, reach out to Nadine, and ask, who is this Massey? I'll be glad to answer any questions, anything that I knew.
Yeah.
When I don't know, you've heard me today say, honestly, I don't know that.
Right.
There are ways to find that
Absolutely.
out. There are other people that do know.
Absolutely.
There are statutes that we can dig into to find out the answers or what the truth is. But in my time in the legislature, man, it was trial by fire a lot of days. But I learned a lot of stuff that I would never have learned if I'd not been there.
Right.
It was hard. It was a challenging place.
Right.
There's a lot of power there. There's a lot of power struggle there. I will say that not everything is for the good of the people that I witnessed going on there.
Yeah.
The lobbyists have a ton of influence, and they have a
Yes.
lot more money than the grassroots will ever have.
Yep. Yeah.
So I am an open book when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I am just it's not about me. One of the reasons you don't know my name, it's not about me.
Right. And also, we want to protect her.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I mean, I laugh just because it's true.
Yes,
I mean,
it is
seriously,
true. My mom does worry.
We want to protect her, but I can attest to she is more than willing to have conversations with anyone and everyone, and I love that she's willing to say she doesn't know, and we'll find out together. So, anything lastly that you want to say?
Good.
Yeah, I think that we might have overstayed our welcome. Hopefully not.
Well, since JR's probably not back in the state yet.
Yeah. He might not even be awake yet.
I think he probably is. I think he's probably somewhere between here and, I don't know. Has anybody said where he's been? Or why he's not had his show this whole week?
No.
He was an alternate delegate representing Miller County to the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Now, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But to say JR was there last night when Trump made his speech. JR's been there the whole week. He's met some pretty incredible people.
Yeah.
He's been sending some pictures out. I don't want to tell all of his stories because he's going to have a ton to talk about. But I am so excited that he's had that opportunity to go and represent us and to experience that. I know that he's been to Mar-a-Lago a couple times, as well as Ike Skelton has been. They really do care. I mean, they spend their own money. They travel on their own dime. It's not an inexpensive. Either one of those trips is very expensive. But they do care. They care about being involved. They care about representing us. They care about our kids, our future, our economy, our country, our state, our communities. They're invested. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
JR started the radio station.
Yep.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate that. So
Absolutely,
I'm looking
yes.
forward to hearing
Yeah,
JR's
same.
shows next week on what else he learned, who all he met,
Yeah.
the exciting things that he got to witness.
Yeah, so shameless plug, listen to JR. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be on today, but he is on usually Monday through Friday, 2 to 4, I
Yes.
believe. So make sure that you tune into that this coming Monday. It's going to be a fun ride.
Depends on how quick he makes that trip home, huh, Nadine?
Yeah. We'll see.
He likes to drive a little
Oh.
fast.
Oh my word. I don't know. I might get fired for saying this, but I have never been so scared in a car in my life. And I was in a rollover accident once. I mean, I guess God said it wasn't time for us to go. I don't know how we didn't. I don't know how we made it. I don't know how he makes it anywhere alive because he gets there fast. He
He's
should work for
brave.
Jimmy John's, I guess.
He's very brave.
Or stupid. What? Who said
Did
that?
you say that?
What?
Did you say that out loud?
We do love you, JR. I'm so grateful for this opportunity that you have, this chance that you've taken on me. And I hope that I help you achieve the goal that you're going for here and educating people and making sure that they know the truth about what's going on in our world. And hopefully this just raises up more and more patriots and fighters. And I just wanted to say we are coming to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Arts Studio. It is a beautiful studio at the beautiful Lake of the Ozarks. Thank you, Miss A, for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. I will be back again next Friday at 9 for Nadine at 9. And we will have Dawn Abbott. And we should also have Daryl Bunch. Both of them are running for District 1 Commissioner in Miller County. Dawn Abbott, like Ike was saying earlier, has been the incumbent, the commissioner there for a while, and I'm excited to get to talk with him a little bit more. It'll be good to have his perspective on a Miller County commissioner and just kind of see how they compare or contrast to Camden County. Anyway, all right, I've taken up your time for too long. It's time for me to get outside, and I just wanted to remind you that until next time, let's not act like children.
Look at this photograph. Every time I do, it makes me laugh. How did our eyes get so red? And what the hell is on Joey's head? This is where I grew up. I think the president who fixed it up. I never knew we ever went without. The second floor is hot for sneaking out. And this is where I went to school. Most of the time I had better things to do. Criminal record says I've broken twice. I must have done it half a dozen times. I wonder if it's too late. Should I go back and try to graduate? Life's better now than it was back then. If I was them, I wouldn't let me in. Oh, 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 oh God. Every memory of looking out the back door. I have a photo album spread out on my bedroom floor. It's hard to say it, time to say it. Goodbye, goodbye. Every memory of walking out the front door. I found the photo of the friend that I was looking for. It's hard to say it, time to say it. Goodbye, goodbye. Remember the old arcade? Blew every dollar that we ever made. The cops see us hanging out. They say somebody went and burned it down. We used to listen to the radio and sing along with every song we know. We said someday we'd find out how it feels to sing to more than just the steering wheel. Kim's the first girl I kissed. I was so nervous that I nearly missed. She's had a couple of kids since then. I haven't seen her since God knows when. Oh, 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 oh God. Every memory of looking out the back door. I have a photo album spread out on my bedroom floor. It's hard to change.